France under attack, the fall of the Fifth Republic, a fictional geopolitical scenario of France's collapse. This is a fictional scenario intended as a cautionary tale about failed security policies, arms proliferation, and urban unrest. It does not reflect real-world intentions or actions of any ethnic or religious group. In the summer of 2027, France, once a beacon of Western civilization, descends into chaos. What began as isolated clashes in Marseille's northern districts erupts into a full-scale insurrection that engulfs Paris and then much of the country. The French state, fractured by years of internal divisions, foreign policy blowback, and decades of neglect in its urban peripheries, crumbles under the weight of its contradictions. The powder keg, years in the making. The roots of this catastrophe were planted years earlier. Marginalized communities in France's banlieues, largely comprised of North African and Middle Eastern descent, had long suffered from unemployment, poor education, and systemic discrimination. These areas had become isolated zones of despair, neglected by the state yet constantly surveilled by security forces. Add to that the influx of new migrants and refugees, many of whom came from war-torn regions and found themselves trapped in similar cycles of poverty and exclusion. But the trigger came from an entirely different front: Ukraine. The Ukrainian war and the black market flood. By 2024, vast quantities of Western arms had been funneled into Ukraine to combat the Russian invasion. But by 2026, as the war devolved into a protracted stalemate, many of these weapons, javelin missiles, automatic rifles, even drones, found their way onto the European black market. Corrupt networks, warlords, and criminal syndicates quickly reaped the profits. From Rotterdam to Naples, a vast network of smugglers distributed these weapons across Europe's underworld. In France, they fell into the hands of gangs operating in cities like Marseille, Toulouse, and Paris. Some of these groups, radicalized and embittered, saw in these weapons an opportunity, not just for power, but for revenge. The collapse begins. Marseille. It starts in Marseille. In July 2027, a police raid in the Quartier Nord turns into a bloodbath when officers are ambushed by heavily armed groups using military-grade weapons. Dozens of police die. The government responds with overwhelming force, but the urban guerrilla, fighters melt into the city's dense alleys and housing blocks. Clashes spread to Lyon, Toulouse, and finally Paris, where the spark ignites the full-scale rebellion. In the infamous suburbs of Seine-Saint-Denis, entire blocks are taken over by paramilitary factions. Police stations are overrun. The French National Police, overwhelmed and under-equipped, collapses. Paris falls by August. Paris is a war zone. Armed groups seize control of key infrastructure, train stations, power plants, and communication towers. The government declares a state of emergency and deploys the army. But conventional forces, trained for foreign battlefields, not urban warfare, are quickly bogged down in house-to-house fighting. Notre Dame burns. The Eiffel Tower is riddled with bullet holes. Tourists flee the capital in terror. President Emmanuel Macron, unable to control the escalating situation, is evacuated to London under British Special Forces escort. The Fifth Republic, symbolically and functionally, has fallen. Southern surge, Algeria, enters the fray as chaos reigns. Rumors spread of Algerian ships moving north. Former military officers, now leaders of pan-Maghrebist movements, claim they are coming to protect French citizens of North African descent. Some see them as liberators. Others see it as an invasion. Southern France, already shaken by unrest in Marseille and Nice, becomes the new front line. French army units stationed in Corsica and Montpellier are stretched thin. Many soldiers desert. Some join local militias to defend their hometowns. The French state, without leadership, splinters. Contagion. Germany and Belgium in freefall. The TUI. Chaos doesn't stop at France's borders. In Germany, tensions explode in cities like Berlin and Cologne, where large disenfranchised communities mirror the French banlieues. Belgian cities like Brussels and Antwerp follow suit, particularly in districts already struggling with integration, unemployment, and radicalization. European leaders call emergency summits. NATO is paralyzed. Many of its members are themselves on the verge of internal collapse. Calls for military intervention are drowned out by fear of turning European capitals into new Aleppos. A new Europe, or no Europe at all by late 2027, the European Union exists only on paper. France is effectively in a state of civil war. Border checkpoints are re-established. Militias now control entire regions. What was once one of the world's most stable and prosperous blocs has become a continent of fire. The real war was never just on the battlefield. It was a war of neglect, of arrogance, of refusing to integrate, to protect borders, to control arms, or to foresee the blowback of foreign interventions. France, blinded by its illusions of grandeur and moral superiority, became the first domino to fall. The others followed. Conclusion. This fictional scenario is not a prediction, it is a warning. Europe stands at a crossroads. Either it takes urgent action to resolve the contradictions festering within its societies, poverty, exclusion, unchecked migration, foreign entanglements, and arms proliferation, or it risks becoming a continent governed not by law, but by fire.